Hello everybody and welcome to another Bay 12 Games Talk featuring myself, Tekkud, and Zach and Tarn Adams. We discuss many things in this interview, from a lot of mod support and premium features, classic features, some random stuff, and a few little things around the edges for entertainment. Fortunately for this episode, I received some permission from KitFox to use the footage from their Learning Dwarf Fortress live streams so that you guys don't need to just simply stare at the map generating in the background. Instead, you will be provided with lovely footage of Premium Dwarf Fortress. Of course, it's not me playing, it's Alexandra, their community manager, playing. Keep in mind, if you would like to see those streams live, you can find that at the KitFox Twitch channel. There's a link down in the description. They happen on Thursdays and will happen up until the release. I'm not sure if they will continue after that, but they will happen up until the release. So, release date is, of course, December 6th, 2022 at 1400 hours UTC. And of course, there is a live countdown in the description as well under twitch.tv/gremlinformayor. So without keeping your time any longer, let's dive in to the full video. Well, hello everybody. Now that soundcheck is complete, I can say that we are sufficiently back, and I am joined by Zach and Tarn. How are you two doing today?
I'm doing great.
Yes, a great day.
Great day. And also joining us, reading off questions and chatting, is going to be friend of the show, Tekkud, who makes tutorials on YouTube and does things on Twitch.
That's me.
And, well, I mean, since the last time we spoke in this little round table, we didn't have a release date. So I guess the most important spot to start off here is, how does it feel to, like, actually have a release date?
It feels great. It feels like there's an actual day that things are going to happen now.
It feels like we announced the release date yesterday, and it's already warped ahead a week or however long it's been. I don't even know how long it's been.
Yeah, time is compressed now. It did have that effect.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like, it feels like yesterday it was 29 days left on this countdown timer that I've had running, and now it's at, like, what, 19? Like, it's kind of quick. Like, someone popped into my stream the other day and said that it was like 400 something hours. I was like, that seems wrong, but you know, how've things been? Like, how's the game feeling? Like, what's kind of your day-to-day working on the announced premium versions been since release? Like, are you just patching up a few final bugs? Is art still going in? Like, where are we at?
Well, the artists have kind of moved on to optional projects that they can finish, and if they finish, it's cool, and if they don't finish, then it'll just be in. You know, it can come in later. Like, we just got in small gem images with the actual cuts. And large gems as well. So now that's in the latest release candidate. That felt safe enough to put in, right? It's just substituting some images in. So now we have all these little cut gems that look perfect, like little cut gems. And like, big code changes now, not really going to be a thing we can do too much, except when we have to do it, because we're having a trouble, for instance, with our old version of Fmod, which it turned out we were using one that was about, 18 years old or something. It was an old version of Fmod.
When we went to get the license, they were like, what?
They were very confused. It took a long time to explain. And so we eventually were just like, we had a little trouble with streaming audio and stuff. So we were just like, now we're on Fmod 2022, you know, we're in the present, which is really unusual for Dwarf Fortress. So things like that, you know, the stuff that kind of needs to be patched up or can optionally be patched up with very little trouble. And then, yeah, just more like interacting with the outside world, like we did the tutorial stream, and you were just on a tutorial stream, that kind of thing we wouldn't normally be spending, you know, hours on, but now we are.
It's got to be an interesting shift in pace, if nothing else.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's there's even free time sometimes where we're kind of in between stuff, but can't quite work on a thing because it's too dangerous to add a big thing. And yeah, just sit in the chair and relax for a little bit, you know?
So I guess kind of for me, sitting here and like waiting for the release to kind of roll up, it's just kind of this daunting tidal wave of just like premeditated excitement in a way. Like there's so many questions I've got, like out of the other conversations we've had in the past on this channel, it's been usually I get like maybe like 100, 150, sometimes as low as 70 questions submitted. This time I had about 300. and things go from like fortress mode in premium to adventure mode to like mod support, and things like Steam Workshop, and then people asking about, stuff that's coming in the future in the near and soon stuff. So I guess kind of my question is, what is your plan for like directly after release? Like, are you just gonna sit there and bug fix for a bit and then take a vacation? Is it just gonna be all hands on deck working on adventure mode? Like, what are we looking at there?
Yeah, we have the things we have to do for it. Kind of depends on where we're at with classic. Like classic is one of those things I can kind of work on now. And arena mode is one of those things that I can kind of work on now. And if those are in with the release, that's cool. And if those aren't ready, then they'll be ready shortly after, and we're not going to really take a break until that's done for sure. Also, I mean, we mentioned in that group of things, it used to be 3 things we talked about. We used to talk about Steam Workshop, Classic, and Arena mode, right? That was kind of the really near-term roadmap. Steam Workshop's up and running. Steam Workshop is good.
Nice.
Like, there's obviously lots of things that can be improved about Steam Workshop. I mean, I know people on other workshops can like upload screenshots and just all kinds of other stuff. We have kind of our basic modding capability up, like objects, graphics, that kind of thing. But people want to do like new key bindings and embark profiles and stuff like that. We're still kind of going to be rolling those things out as we figure out formats for them and stuff. But the real problem, like the pipeline of just like I can upload a mod, I can subscribe to a mod, it will download my subscriptions, move them over, install them, all that stuff is done. So that's good. That's the hard part.
I mean, that's the fact that the initial hard bit is done is kind of major. Tekkud, did you have anything you wanted to ask about modding stuff? Because I know you've dabbled with that a bit.
I did actually think of a small question. As far as how the raws are edited, so let's say I made a creature. I have actually made a couple creatures for the game. Are the raws still structured the same, such that my new creature can simply be copy pasted, or has there been changes to how those are formatted?
I think there weren't any changes at all. Like, it's the exact same as it was before. I mean, obviously graphics is way different, right? But those things are separate. Like the creature objects. I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's changed about them at all. I know trees. Okay. Something changed about trees, maybe, but even there, maybe not. I mean, I've just used I basically just turned the old vanilla objects into mods, sitting in the separate folders with the new mod format, so that you can kind of pull them in and out of the load order. And I don't remember having to change anything about them at all. So awesome. I think people, they'll be pleasantly surprised that they just need to write up an info file in the format. I don't remember how well I posted the format on Future of the Fortress, but basically it's just a few tags. Because I posted the format last time on Future of the Fortress, or at least answered a question about that. But it's not going to be hard to set up. You just need your name and your author information description, and just put in like, oh, hey, this is version 1 of my mod or whatever. That's just like 5 or 6 lines total. And then you just have an objects folder, just like the current objects folder, but it's your own objects folder where and it doesn't need to be just one kind of object. You can have a material and a creature and an item in there or something. And you also have a graphics folder, and the new graphics format just lets you link up those objects however they need to be linked up if you want to provide graphics for them, or you can just use the existing graphics. Or if you're on Classic, you just don't need a graphics folder at all, because the ASCII tiles still live in the old objects like they used to. You just kind of still say, hey, this tile is attached to this object in the same way as before. So yeah, I mean, it's not going to be hard to update mods.
Nice. Yeah, so people with all of their various creatures and stuff can basically just upload it to the workshop if they wanted to share their mods then. I mean, obviously there's a small amount of like you were saying, tags, some file structure stuff that has to be sort of plugged in, but as far as their actual creatures and stuff are concerned, and possibly items or whatever they have, they can just go ahead and send those as is, and they'll work.
Yeah,
At
yeah.
least it sounds like it.
You take the folder, right? That folder that has the info.txt and the objects. And for a Steam upload, there's a few extra tags that we describe in the folder. Just you need like the Steam name, Steam description, Steam tags. There's Steam metadata. I don't even know what that is for Workshop, but we support putting a string in there. And you can then just take that folder that has the objects and info file, put it into mods/mod upload, and then when you fire up Dwarf Fortress, there'll be a new like, hey, I'm going to upload my mods button, and you press it, and it pops it on the workshop, and it gives you. I mean, it has to return back your ID number and stuff, which it will also append to your file, so you know what your ID number is. It'll append it to your info file, and then if you want to update your mod, you can then use that ID number to update rather than re-upload your mod to have like subsequent versions, change logs. We support the change log feature and stuff for doing additional mods. And then when people subscribe to things, like their saves will automatically update the mod that they have. Like if you subscribe to version 2 of a mod and a save was made with version 1, the save will update itself if the mod is marked as compatible. If it's marked as incompatible, then you'll need to have an old version of the mod.
Okay.
But that's handled by the mod author. Just do they think it's compatible or not?
And I'm working under the assumption that it's going to work exactly the same as the old versions, where when you add a new creature or something, you have to generate a new world for that creature to surface.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, it just doesn't know how to incorporate stuff into existing saves. That's always been kind of the case. With the little exceptions where you can like change a name or whatever, right? You can do some things without rocking the boat. Those rules are about the same as they were before, I imagine.
So another thing that's like maybe on a little bit more of a lighthearted, humorous note, mere days before the release date was announced, me and Tekkud were on a podcast together where we discussed quite at length the issue with goblin thong rot. And I noticed a statement where on the Bay 12 blog where it said that this issue has been resolved. What went into resolving that issue?
Yeah, so dwarves have a couple legal underwears now, and that makes all the difference. If you can make a loincloth or whatever, then you don't have to panic when a goblin drops one and worry about it rotting off later. It's just part of dwarven society now, like other societies. I mean, there's lots of different ways to fix it. That's the one I chose. We could have done a lot of different things. That was just kind of the safest, simplest way to do it without introducing new crass potential from like deeper thoughts about underwear that dwarves might have or whatever. Like, we don't wear underwear in this society, therefore I'm going to think this way. It was just much easier to give them some loincloths.
Hear that, chat room? Dwarves can now make underwear.
Well, the Guardian should have put that on their headline. Dwarves now wear underwear.
Kotaku, I just wrote your headline for dwarves can now make underwear.
That's what we've all been waiting for.
It's fantastic. So like I'm looking forward to there being masterwork loincloths everywhere. But I'm going to actually, Tekkud, do you have any like more kind of pre-show questions you want to ask, or should we just dive into the bigger question?
I have one that may stem into a bit of a conversation. We can hit it now. So I spoke with Tarn and Zach briefly on my own, and we talked about trading. And I guess trading is getting a big like balance overhaul. There's going to be a massive change as far as how trading provides to the player, because currently in the game, if you're a veteran player and you know what you're doing, trading is pretty much a cheat code. It solves all of your strange mood needs before you get your first strange mood. So there's that, and you could basically buy the entire caravan out with some meals made out of, I don't know, like donkey liver and mussels. But I guess that's changing a little bit. We're going to get a bit of a more stringent or more miserly trade caravans.
That's right. You no longer get wagons right away. You get like a couple mules that make it to your trade depot. And so like one of the things I would do now is I'd put the trade depot underground just at the bottom of a stairway or something like that, because the mules can come all the way down there, and then only later put it outside when there's more defenses, because you won't even get wagons anymore until you get it's tracked to nobles. Like you have to make yourself an established colony with nobles and stuff like that, or they will not even send wagons. And I think the elves too. It's harder to get the elf caravans, but just the fact that you get smaller caravans like that, it's hard to sustain. It's harder to sustain yourself, but that was only like the one side of the coin. The other side is that we made everything kind of like like metal doesn't or what is it?
We tightened up a lot of the prices. Like
junk is worthless now. You can't just sell garbage.
Yeah, and if you make a masterpiece junk, it's not worth like 120 or whatever. It's just going to be worth like 20. It's not 10. There's some value to it, but it's not. You can't just like jump way up into the stratosphere on muscle shells now or whatever. Everything's like that. We like gems. We made a bit more valuable, not overall, but in this new scheme, they're relatively more valuable just because they're harder to get at and etc. Just generally kept tweaking values.
The gems thing is kind of important because we fixed the UI with gems, so you no longer have to designate what kind of gem you're going to cut. And so gems becomes like now that it's easier to cut the gems. And I think there's also more gems just generally.
Yeah.
And so gems is a good way to start off your trade caravans now, is you find a bunch of gems, and then that's the way to start off. Is probably the easiest strategy I've found so far.
Yeah, and the distribution's slightly more gamey in terms of depth of good gems. Like until we have the economy stuff running where scarcity matters and where you embark matters, and you're going to be like the iron steel colony or whatever. It's just like that. We don't have stuff like that, so it made sense to slightly modify the distribution code for now to make make the game play better. So lots of tweaks there.
So you're telling me that I can't keep all my gems to myself and instead trade the clothes off of the corpses from the last goblin raid to buy out whole caravans worth of metal?
I mean, you could still get some mileage out of like 200 dead goblins, but that's your prize, right? For doing such a good job.
Yeah, I guess that's true. We worked hard for that. My dwarves, they did put themselves on the line.
Yeah, the goblinite ore.
And then you can make spikes out of that and then sell that for a higher price. You can still make money off of it. I was thinking about like the fact that Long Death, which is the fort that I was just playing, is like that fort's entire economy is based off of used clothing at this point. Like that's my only real export. It's like every year it's like, all right, 500 new socks, let's get them out of here. But like that's really intriguing to know. And also something that chat mentioned and reminded me of, which also might start a little bit of a discussion, is like changes to farming, because like previously farming has just been something that you can just, farm on the surface, just underground 1 layer down and everything's hunky dory. But I've heard that soil farming has been tweaked.
This is correct. Yes, we made shallow soil farming like in 1Z level down or whatever. It doesn't produce nearly as much. You can still do it, but you have to have a vaster farm. You're just going to get like 1 plant and like 2 tops. If you've got someone who's super talented and you're using fertilizer, you can squeeze more out of it. But you can get 5 times as much if you want to go down into the real caverns and risk the revitalized blow dart invasions and other troubles down below. We're trying to get that back in, because you really just don't need to interact with the caverns in general in the old version so much. Trying to put some enticing things down there. We have other enticing things down in the cavern that people will discover when they find them. If you want
to. Is anything that's down there now, any adjustments made to the caverns, also linked to nobility, or are the caverns more or less just like a when you get there, when you feel ready for the challenge?
Yeah, you just go. You can just go down there. There's no it would. I'm not sure how it would restrict you, unless we made it kind of like harder to mine deeper or something, or just had
Yeah.
some restriction, like the monarch has proclaimed that you cannot dig less than
Yeah.
10 levels unless you need it, which would seem a little false. I mean, but it's dangerous to speed run that when you have 7 dwarves, especially if you're going to leave it open. One rotherer is enough to have a bad day.
Yeah, I was thinking like when things spawn into the caverns that are, for example, blind cave ogres, things that can be dangerous, or forgotten beasts and stuff like that being especially dangerous. Is that stuff? Is it still going to operate as simply as it does now, or is it also going to scale with sort of what's in your fort?
Like the agitation
it-
systems that we've heard about as well.
Yeah, the agitate. Yeah, it's more. It's more the more activity you do in the caves starts to kind of piss them off, and so that is the rate instead of just how much stuff you have. I think is it in addition to, or did we?
Yeah, I think we put an additional wealth trigger there. I think because if you don't get forgotten beasts in 20 years, it's kind of frustrating sometimes if you haven't been active in the caverns. It's because there's kind of a mix. There's a mix of triggers, but you can start really agitating the animal people that live in the caves and the forgotten beasts if you're just sitting there hacking down trees and farming. Or if you decide to like put a loud tavern right in a pillar, like it's still like even if it's not connected to the outside, like the sound radiates out like a certain number of tiles and can increase agitation that way as well.
So I'm going to, I think, unless there's anything else we want to cover, start diving into audience questions. These are, of course, questions that were sent in to me over the last week and a bit from various places around the internet. And these range from pretty newbie questions all the way up to some pretty dense questions. So I'm going to start off with this one from Josh, and they say, hi, I've never played Dwarf Fortress before, but I've been learning more about the game since the recent Steam announcement. It's great seeing such detailed descriptions of each dwarf's physical characteristics. In the original game's text, how much of that will be represented in the Steam version's sprites? Will a dwarf's purple hair, have a purple-haired sprite art and such?
Yeah. I mean, there are 6 hair colors right now, which means it's like is that a third as many or a fourth as many as you get in text, because the artists wanted to kind of have more room to work with the palette for both hair color and skin tones. We have 4 skin tones and 6 hair colors, I believe. And it will kind of collapse down the text into one of those categories. And the styles are completely represented. We have the dwarves have something like 34 different hair images that are possible based on how long, how curly, and what style they're wearing. So there's an awful lot of those drawings. And the stuff like their what their nose looks like, what their ears looks like, that stuff's not reflected. There's just not enough pixel space to deal with. It's something we've kind of been tempted to say, well, in the future we might draw portraits or something like that, and then we could reflect everything accurately. But right now, it's just 4 possibilities for the face, or 8 possibilities for the face, and all their clothing is reflected. But right now it just uses the profession coloration system for the clothing, rather than the dyes. We don't have a flip. We were going to put that in, and then we kind of got sidetracked. We were going to have a flip between the actual dye colors and the professional dye colors. We didn't get to that, but that's something we can get to pretty quickly if we decide to go that way. Is there anything else about them? I don't think it cuts off limbs. I'm not.
No, we didn't do any kind of wounding or anything.
Yeah, it's something that could be done because the layer system kind of builds them with their hands and arms and stuff. So that kind of flag wouldn't actually be too difficult to do to get them to lose the limbs properly. It will show them if it shows the weapon in their hand. It shows them if they have a crutch. It shows their guts hanging out, obviously. That's now lovingly rendered. It looks kind of like an earthworm.
Excellent.
Maybe that's it. I'm probably missing some stuff.
Wow. Okay, so on today's management course, we are going to look at the topic of getting dwarves to lose their limbs properly.
Well, you wouldn't want to do that improperly. That would just be silly. Tekkud, do you want to take this next question on the doc?
Sure. Joshua says, how has your development process changed with so much external people, such as artists and Kitfox, to consider and coordinate with? Are there some takeaways you want to incorporate in your usual process, or some stuff you're happy to be rid of at some point, if you are back to developing mostly by yourselves?
I don't think the latter is going to be the case. Not any time in the future as we see it, because we're going straight to adventure mode, which is going to need all new menus. It's going to need more information for the travel maps. It's going to need signs out in front of the stores. All of the above ground plants become more important, and we're currently working on that stuff. And it's just, we have a long list of art to do. We'll probably need to bring some sound stuff back in as well. And like that general adjustment wasn't so bad. It wasn't so bad. We have kind of several Discord channels, and we kind of just focus first on getting people unblocked that need to be unblocked. But then there's been plenty of time in the day, for me to do kind of as much as I was doing usually, So I wouldn't program, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's just not, practical or smart to do that kind of thing. So the amount of management time versus the amount of, or like delegating time and the amount of programming time, I haven't noticed a big problem yet or any kind of major differences. It's going to be like, we haven't seen the full picture yet because we've just kind of been revamping stuff that exists mostly. But when we start up on the villains and we start up on the army stuff and finally get to the magic stuff, we're going to have more experience with this setup, but it's also going to be some new challenges around how that works when we're actually doing new design stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was going to say about the new design stuff. We haven't actually designed anything for months and months. It's like it's going to be a new kind of process when we're trying to come up with how the adventure mode UI works and stuff like that. And we're going to have that set up before the artists can even get started. So it's going to be different.
Yeah. I actually was thinking too, I like this question, and I'm curious, now that you have gotten to this point where you have art in the game, it has added another thing to continue doing, another form of work that needs to get done with future updates. You need to also make new art when you make magic or whatever. But it also brought in new talent, extra hands to help with that. So maybe it balances out. I'm curious if it changed your outlook or what working on Dwarf Fortress feels like for you. Is it less of a passion project now and more of a business, or is it even more of a passion project with these extra people there to help you just make it into a bigger thing?
So far, it's just been a buzz seeing what they do, and that's been positive. I don't feel less enthusiastic about what we're doing. I mean, we were just having fun going over the villain notes, for the upcoming stuff just over the last few days while we're in this kind of weird period that we were talking about before between the release announcement and the release, where we can do a lot of things but not big code changes. So there's kind of these weird stretches of more free time, and we're like, hey, let's go look at the notes or whatever. And there's still a ton of enthusiasm there. And it's just cool to have people, working on the art and so forth while we're doing that kind of thing. So I don't see it as being a huge problem right now. I mean, we have not that many extra people, and Kitfox, of course, the publisher, has been doing the things that we would have found time consuming and frustrating or completely unnavigable because we don't know how to do business stuff. So I think really what this comes down to is just kind of, at least for us, like validating our publisher decision. Like, yes, this was a good idea for us.
Having somebody to take the brunt of the work that you're not practiced in doing, that they are practiced in doing, is definitely a helpful thing in a lot of situations.
Yeah, I mean, whether that's business or just the art itself, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I got this next one here from Happy Grub, and they have a question about Steam Deck, I guess specifically, and they're saying, "What are your thoughts on implementing native controller support? I'm obsessed with the idea of playing Dwarf Fortress on my Steam Deck."
So I guess two things. First, I don't know the first thing about it. Second, the game is fully playable with the mouse, aside from like typing names for things, which I imagine is just gonna. I mean, that's always just kind of clunky on a controller, right? You just have to pull up a virtual keyboard and click it, right, or whatever. So it's no nearer in terms of me understanding how it would work, but it's much closer in terms of working with the current interface. So, as long as I've got, the right information and expertise around that stuff seems more feasible than it did before.
This next one comes in from Casey, and they ask a question that kind of bothers me to a point, but I think that we need to kind of dispel some myths. So a lot of people talk about frame rate death. Before I start reading this, a lot of people talk about frame rate death, which I'm convinced just isn't a thing anymore. With the exception of like cats being stuck behind doors and like military dwarves going up into a tree and then being told to leave the map and they can't. And even those are fixable once you can locate.
Well, the first one there, you can't forbid pet doors anymore, so
Yes.
that one's fixed. But the military tree one, I'm sure, is still a problem.
So their question is FPS death in the late game still a thing in the Steam edition? Is there any way to combat it that doesn't rely on player knowledge of how things work? From Casey.
Yeah. So I mean, so you have a lot more experience with older forts than I do. So, like whether or not FPS death, is still a thing, is not it's not a question. I mean, you can answer that better than I can or address that. The new compiler made things faster again. It always does. I'm up on the latest Visual Studio, and it made things faster again. I think if you still mine out every level top to bottom in your whole fortress so that you've got 300,000 boulders on the floor, it's going to be a problem. So I think there's certain play styles that kind of lead you down that road, and I haven't done anything to address that.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I fire up my brother's 200 dwarf fort, still running at 50.
Yeah, some people define the FPS death as like really kind of ridiculous now. It's nothing like it used to be.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not crawling at like 14 or something like that.
Yeah, I haven't seen 14 and since I've been working on the Steam version, and or 2 or 1 or whatever. I know people can attain these things working at it, but also there's going to be, I mean, there's the potential of having more optimization work, more focus optimization work being done, depending on like how the release goes, because we're now like actively getting help with Linux Mac stuff, right? There's that side, but that looks like it's going to potentially come with just like maybe just general extra programming. So we'll see.
So there are some comments in chat as well about like FPS in relation to adventure mode, but I have some questions about that later down in the doc, so we'll get to those. I guess kind of like the one other thing that I just kind of want to say, like Long Death, my 400+ year old fort is still running at like a consistent 30, with the exception of if an owl gets stuck in my stock room that's making everybody panic and they can't path through it. With the exception of that, which happens rarely. Generally it runs at a consistent 30, and that fortress is 329 years old or 429 years old. So
my forts are also usually, I think the worst I've seen lately was like in the 20s, but then I had a few things in that fort that were like major issues for FPS, like additional liquids flowing constantly, 1,000 work orders that were constantly causing dwarves to basically just always be moving stuff around. It was a fort that was designed to not work well in a way, and it was still running in the 20s. I think it's the lowest it ever got.
20s is good. I mean, we kind of don't mind a little bit of slowdown when you've got 200 dwarves running around or whatever. I mean, 100 is fast.
I actually cap my frames at 80 to begin with because I don't like 100 frames because then I'm paused more often is all that means.
Yeah. The worst frame rates I've experienced recently was on a fortress that I was running about 2 months ago. And the reason I experienced bad frames on it was because it was almost as big as you could possibly make the map. And I set enemy army sizes up to 700. So that wasn't lag. That was just simply dramatic slowdown as I was describing it. But enemy armies would spawn and the game would go down to like, I don't know, 10 frames a second. But it's like, there's 1,000 units on the screen, right? Like there's, like I had my full population of dwarves plus all of these invading units and,
And to be clear, like there's stuff that can be done there somehow because like I don't know if you had temperature on and that kind of thing, right?
I did have temperature on.
Yeah, it's like if the enemy army comes and they're bringing like I don't know what it would be like on average an extra 8,000 items or something because they all wear different their little boots and their little socks and their little swords and their arrows and it just runs like temperature updates on them and it's really difficult to turn those off in the ways I normally do with just kind of all kinds of flags and timers and stuff. I use that stuff everywhere. But with temperature, it's so mutable and so like you can walk into between biomes and it suddenly changes and you need to put extra tags and stuff. It's a solvable problem, but I think there's really a lot more to be squeezed out there. And this kind of ties in over to how to speed up adventure mode too when you're like walking around a town or a goblin place, especially with just like 2,000 whatever's wandering around. It's the same problem.
Yeah, gotcha. Tekkud, do you want to take this next question?
Sure, yeah. Lemunda asks, last Thursday's demo showed bins that had a lid indicating that they had contents in them. Will Classic have an ASCII variant of this? And if so, what will it look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's
the premium version comes with its bonuses.
Yeah, it is a bonus for the premium version right now. Certainly, I mean the classic's not static, and if we can think of how to make a bin look closed versus open, I mean because we use the mine carts or the flip 254 right now, so we don't have this like it's really easy to close a 254. It'd be like a minus and a percentage sign or something like that, or yeah. Well, anyway, it's something we could definitely entertain now that we're doing it. And we have the functions just sitting right there. It's really just a one-line change. So yeah, no, people from Classic should continue to like ask for stuff and bring stuff like that up because some of it will be transferable.
The next question we have is from Change Gooman. And they say, will sprites for animal men wearing armor also be a feature on launch, or is this something we'll have to wait for? Or it to be a possibility?
Sadly, we'll have to wait for that one. We have a lot of animal people, and some of their bodies are compatible, but some of them aren't. And we need to work through a solution that's actually going to work on that. And also figure out, if the raw format needs to be additionally compressed. Right now, the dwarf file is just kind of gigantic. There's so many colors, so many items, and it was worth it, for the dwarf to have this. The dwarves, elves, goblins, humans, and kobolds to have like this file that's like literally like 1 point something megs of just information about layering. And to increase that number by like 200 or whatever, 170, 200. How many animal people are there? There's a lot of animal people. Is an additional challenge that we don't. It's an art challenge and it's a kind of compression of raws challenge that we are not going to have by launch. There's just no way to do that. But we'd love to have them wearing their stuff.
When you were talking with Alexandra during the first stream last week, the little learning Dwarf Fortress stream, I don't know if you jokingly used the word stretch goals when you talked about kids, like baby sprites of creatures and dwarves. Are there actual stretch goals you have depending on how successful this is, or is that just what you use to describe a future plan?
That was the wrong word. No, we have the roadmap. And it was more like, I think the word, I think the reason I used that word is because I was like the release date is coming, and we're like trying to stretch out and pull a few more things in. Like we just added those gems. No, it's not. It's not about. It's not about the. I mean, we need a reasonably successful launch just to keep artists working, right? It's not free, but that doesn't seem like something we're gonna really be like needing to have a whole separate, like hullabaloo about or anything. It's just, just a normal, reasonable launch, and then we get to have baby animals, all kinds of baby animals.
Yeah.
What about baby dwarves? Right now, baby dwarves look ridiculous. We need to make them smaller.
That's good to hear because when lately in the current kind of game development environment, when a game developer says stretch goals, that sometimes when it works, it's great. But a lot of people have been traumatized by releases that have tried to incorporate things like that, and then they just it just doesn't go well. But I didn't really expect it to be too closely tied to the literal success of it. I was just curious if you had any kind of list like that, but I guess not.
No, it's just the roadmap. I mean, we posted that, right? That roadmap is what we're doing, and we're just going to go through it. Once we hit adventure mode, there's some question about how villains and armies, like if we're incorporating any of that in advance, or if we're just doing like straight adventure mode and then moving on. So like some of it's not nailed down completely, but I'd expect us to be working on bugs, classic, arena if they're not already done, and then while the adventure mode menus, like the adventure mode menus are going to be coming in at a certain speed. I mean, I don't mean that we're going to release adventure mode early. I mean that it's just like now, like every 2 weeks you put up a Steam news, you say, hey, I did another menu or 2 or 3, and that's cool. Like there's only so much artwork that can be done on that while also needing to do these animals. I think there's just going to be time for the artists to work on animals and stuff. And that's all just important stuff. Like if you don't have like a little puppy, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, right.
Speaking of sprites, Casey would like to know, what's your favorite sprite in the new version?
Do you have a favorite sprite, Zach, in the new version?
Favorite sprite? Well, it's not. We're not sure if it's going to make it in. Probably not. It will probably be in an update shortly after launch. But it would be the Were Panda.
It's going to be how many hours until somebody sees that after it's been added? It's going to take so long.
Yeah, they're good. They're good. We had some werebeast attacks. It's not a safe life we're living there. But there are quite a few were creatures.
Mm-hmm.
People will probably just cheat and look at the art folder.
True.
Yeah, no, the were creatures are awesome. Those are in progress right now. They're like halfway done or something like that. I mean, something like that. Some fraction of a percentage done, and they're amazing. It's good stuff. I like I just like seeing all the little animals running around and stuff. I don't really play favorites with the animals, so I just like seeing the animals running around. It's just like going outside, except there's all the animals from all over the world.
Right in front of you. We got kangaroos and elephants in the same place for some reason.
Yep.
Tekkud, do you want to take this next one?
Sure. This one's a doozy here. I might have to do some translation, I think.
Uh-huh.
When playing Dwarf Fortress, one will quickly find out that constructing multi-story buildings often is hampered by unexpected denial of resources, no access to the building materials. Even when you have an abundance of said materials, it's often due to a lack of navigatable ground to the resources, so there's no pathing to it.
Yeah.
Will there be an easy method to kind of fail-proof or to show a player what the source of this is, like maybe where it's blocked, or will it be done the old-fashioned way of trial and error?
It's kind of halfway in between right now. We don't have like some kind of cool like access, like I don't know what you do. You'd like click some special tool and then click on a tile and it would show you like an access map or something like that. But one thing we've got in the new one is you can just build constructions in Z layers, and it will flood out from the accessible points, like the floor, or if you do something weird, like make a stairwell that's hanging off of a cliff and is connected at the center of the cliff, it'll do the flood from like the center of the cliff or whatever. And you can just add all the resources, or just tell it to use closest material and not even look. And then they'll build it one piece at a time. Like if you build a wall that way, like if you build like a 5-story wall, you can just slap it down, just put down the cube, one or rectangular solid or whatever, just slap it down. They won't build the top parts because they don't have access to them, but those materials will be linked. And then you can build a scaffold or whatever, like a stairwell. And they will still go and just grab the materials properly to build the wall. It's not as far as I want it to be. Like there's one extra step I want to take at least, which is to make it so you can assign constructions without linking an item at all. Just say, I want a granite wall. I don't care where you get the granite from. The worker decides at the time of construction. And if they don't have one, then they'll just wait or suspend or whatever, and then eventually build it. That would be really cool. That's something we need for buildings in general. And it was just a big rewrite, and the clock came up on us. So that's still something that's sitting there in the notes for short-term doing.
Yeah, and I will add, though, that there's one common cause of not finding a path to your building materials that's going to be kind of soft solved with premium, at least the graphics version of it, and that is ramps. Because in the graphics, you can see probably, I haven't played it myself, but I'm sure you can see that your ramp doesn't have a wall next to it to make it into an actual ramp. Whereas currently in the game, if you were to construct a ramp or you would have like one wall next to the ramp, but that wall didn't have open space above it, it's just a ramp to nowhere. And people might expect that ramp to get their dwarves somewhere. And that's a really common cause of people not realizing their path is blocked. And I'm pretty sure from the graphics I've seen, that we've all seen, it's going to be way easier to tell that your ramp isn't going to the place you need it to go to.
Definitely looking down from Z levels, it's really easy to tell what's going on. Looking down from above, because you can see so many different layers at once. Mm-hmm. But there's also because there is problems with the ramp's visualization if you have like a north-south ramp, because that doesn't have that's just a colored square. I think it gets slightly darker when you go down, but it's just a square. So that ramp is kind of invisible, but we added a ramp visualizer button that kind of works the same way ASCII does. And I believe that only works at one level at a time so that you can tell what's going on. So there are aids with the ramps.
Yeah, and I don't remember if it's in the ASCII version or not. Does it tell you a ramp is unusable if there's no walls next to it? Does it just say unusable ramp? Because we have that now too. So I guess there's just four different soft fixes, like you say, to help. And yeah, they're just not triangles anymore, so you can see where they go almost always.
I'm definitely looking forward to the like multi Z level view just being like a feature instead of something you have to kind of hack into the game sideways, because that's something that I'm, very keen on being able to show people, just as somebody who makes my living more or less streaming this game and like communicating it to people, and it's going to make that process a lot easier instead of having to explain like this line of dots means there's a layer beneath it and stuff like that. So that this blue stuff it's fog, it's like Silent Hill, don't worry about it, and stuff like that.
You're worried about it.
But kind of a similar subject. This question comes in from a suspicious gremlin, and they have to say, in the old version, you have to remember which levers are connected to what building. Will there be a new version of the overlay system to easily see what is connected to a bridge or a lever, other than like renaming the lever to remember what it is?
Yes, that's already in there. You can just click on the object, and it has a button that says linked objects, and then it will show a little list of the objects linked to it, and then you can zoom to them, I believe.
Yeah, we don't have an overlay in the sense of like showing lines. It's just hard for us to draw lines. It's funny what the engine limitations are. Like if you wanted to just show like these cool little lines connecting the levers to all their targets or their linked mechanisms or whatever, just can't do it. No lines for us. But the list, yeah, you don't just have to name the levers. You do have a scrollable list.
A suspicious question from Gremlin, but yes. Name your levers anyway. Just name everything, people. Just start naming stuff.
Name your table.
That's what I tell them in my tutorials. In fact, you know what? If the table is the office table for your mayor, then yes, name that table. Mayor's office desk. You know?
Jurist stuff axe table. Do not touch.
Well, you can name the office now. Could you not do that before? You can name the office manager's office or bookkeeper's office. And then you can zoom through it with there's a list of places. It's called places. And then it'll have the list of offices, and it'll have your manager's office or whatever sitting right there on the list.
You can kind of do that now, but there's a headache. It's the Shift R, I think, rooms menu, and then you scroll through every single piece of furniture.
Please don't tell me about Shift R rooms. I don't want to remember Shift R rooms. Places is better. It's got different subcategories and stuff.
You got pictures. You can look at
It's got pictures.
You can see the office.
It's got names. It's okay. Things are okay now.
Yeah, there's that list of zoomable things like F1 to F2, and I don't even use that anymore. I use the places tab. It's easier to navigate.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the internet sensation of the back rooms. It's kind of like a horror theme sort of new, trend, which is sort of like this liminal space that's kind of like an office cubicle space, but there isn't actually anything in it, and it's kind of random and infinite, so you're stuck in this like fluorescent lit hell. I feel like Shift R is the back rooms of the Dwarf Fortress interface.
The Dwarf Fortress back rooms that are like an old fortress with a lot of artifacts in it, and you're just like, what even are these 700 books I have?
Yeah, I'm not sure that gets much better. Oh yeah, no wait, there's tabs on objects too. I think isn't there for written content versus artifacts? I sure hope so.
I think we divided it.
Yeah, I sure hope so. Yeah.
Certainly hope so. Next question comes in from Eric, and they ask, will the new ASCII mode be available on December 6th? Because that new classic UI looks undeniably cool. Can't wait for it, and thanks a lot.
Yeah, but just whenever classic comes out, it's like the problems that it has now just make it kind of really terrible looking and ugly when you're like scrolling over the sky, and it just has all these ghost things that I need to fix. Buildings don't show up. It's just a few problems, but that swap button is going to come at the same time as classic mode, and it's yet to be seen whether I make December 6th or whether I make December 12th or whatever. Who knows? But it's coming, and they'll come at the same time.
Tekkud, do you want to take this next one?
Yeah. So Mort asks, if money were no object, do you think you would have ever done this kind of release focused on accessibility? Which I'm not sure if they mean this kind of release which is focused on accessibility, or this kind of release but focused on accessibility.
Yeah, well, that's an important distinction. I mean, this whole release is focused on accessibility, but I'm not in the way people usually mean, because the starting bar for us was so much different because of what our game was. So like if they're talking about, I'm not sure like what accessibility features, we're still like sorely lacking. But we probably have several that we don't like. We don't have like specific colorblind modes with like the names of the different types of colorblindness like I've seen in some games where you can swap, between the modes and stuff. So like that kind of accessibility we haven't attained yet, but it's certainly far more accessible than it was when we started with ASCII, right? So I don't know what they mean then about money not being an object.
My interpretation of this question was kind of would you have made a graphical interface and released it for sale if money was no object?
Oh, if we were already had good healthcare, in other words.
Yeah.
I think things would have played out stranger. I think the game would probably be open source or something. And someone would have done it like it's a really different world when everyone doesn't have to worry about stupid crap.
Yeah. Touche. I've got a question about modding from the Dire Dragon. Tekkud, would you like to take this one again?
Sure, yeah. Hi, Tarn. I love Dwarf Fortress. It was one of the games that got me into the world of roguelikes. My question concerns customization in or of the game and how it will be handled, mainly for upcoming Classic. In the current version, all settings are relegated to a couple files, namely the colors and tile set configurations. I've also heard that you are working on extracting a lot of those settings in those files to make them more accessible from within the game. Will those colors and tile set options still be configurable? If so, will it still be relegated to having to edit those files, or will there be some sort of menu to configure colors and tile sets from within the settings in the game, I assume? Maybe like something akin to Minecraft's old texture pack menu.
Yeah, we didn't get there yet, but that's basically part of the classic struggle. We pulled almost everything out and got it into a settings menu, but because we weren't doing classic yet, the colors and like what is it, tree tiles? There's like a really long list of tiles in one of those init files that I think is just like tree tiles. Certain things like that, like those kind of configurations, like that, because objects you can change, of course. Like you can change a creature's tile by doing a creature mod, but you can't change these tree tiles that are in the init file and the colors, of course, in the init file. So yeah, while we haven't pulled those out yet, and in bark profiles, and I mean bark profiles you can do from within the game in the old way that was, I mean, that's kind of a different problem. There's basically, yeah, there's still work to do with the init stuff. I'd expect to see that stuff come out though by the time we get classic done.
Awesome. I've got a couple questions here about adventure mode things. So we're going to kind of move into that subject. I've got a question from Kirax, and they say, I'm very excited for when adventure mode comes to Premium Dwarf Fortress. I understand that you guys aren't working on adventure mode at the moment, but I'm wondering if you had any plans to make adventure mode more fleshed out. What I mean by this is, will adventure mode have more content? Will objectives be easier to find, making a simplified quest menu and stuff like that, etc.?
I mean, it's kind of like
It's almost the primary mode
yeah, it's the whole thing we're gonna do after the adventure mode UI just basic setup. It's not like Fort mode. We've been making lots of changes while we go, right? We did the labor menu stuff. We did the changes to the end game. We changed quite a few things that we've talked about, like farming and the agitation system. And, you know, as you sit and think, you just start remembering more and more things that we've changed about Fort mode. Adventure mode, like, we're going to be spending X number of months, like, updating the zillion menus and all that stuff. And, like, it's hard to imagine stuff not changing while we're doing that. And then, additionally, the villains release, the portion of the villains release that remains is predominantly adventure mode. The army stuff is half adventure mode. So I expect, like, there's just a lot of adventure mode stuff that's going to change as we go. I don't know that the first release will have big changes to the quest system, just because there's so much to do with villains too, right?
Right, and I think adventure mode just by itself, when we get it out there, is going to blow everybody's mind anyway. That it exists.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I mean, I think I've talked to you guys about this before, that my big hope for adventure mode is that everybody gets into fortress mode, learns fortress mode, really enjoys fortress mode, and wants more, and then suddenly there's a new game there. So
yeah, it's part of the same game, and they mix together.
Right. I mean, it's like my hope for it is that people understand how big the world that they're playing dwarf mode in actually is, because they can see the map of dwarf mode and all the trees, but they don't know that there's, like, literally to scale, I think it's New Zealand. There's a New Zealand sized map that you're walking around on square by square, where a square is like, what is it, like 2 meters long or something? Yeah.
Yeah, and there's all the little buildings and all the little shrines and stuff just out in the world.
I recall that the Dwarf Fortress Roundtable guys did a stream while they were doing theirs live on their YouTube channel. I don't think they do that anymore, but they were doing one of their podcasts and they were doing adventure mode. And actually, everything they did looked like a lot of fun, and it looked like a lot of possibilities are there. It just seemed like the only real thing that it needs is to get through the technical barrier. Everyone talks about adventure mode being one of those things that you have to like learn, like sit down and learn, really just how to move your character around.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's weird coming from a roguelike background because a lot of the genre conventions are followed in adventure mode, so I probably have more of a blind spot there. But that's something we're going to be addressing because it's going to, I haven't played a lot of roguelikes that use the mouse. Like I know Dungeon Man's you can control with the mouse, and I'm assuming like Dreadmore has a mouse thing and maybe some other ones. And we're going to have to, find our own way forward there. I mean, obviously the keyboard's going to be really important because there's so much you can do, and you don't want to just slap down a gigantic push button interface on an RPG, right? It's like a different feeling, but we'll see. I mean, we're gonna revamp some stuff. I mean, there are going to be some big changes to conversations and stuff like that, just because of how the menus have to evolve.
I know a number of roguelikes that have added full mouse support as of late, but there's something about it, at least to me who's played roguelikes for years, that never quite feels right. I always end up swapping back to numpad eventually. But there are some that have done it quite well to a point where it's like, yeah, I mean, if there isn't much around and you're not doing very specific, like very touchy small movements, it generally mouse control works quite well, I find, but
Yeah. I think I think we'll just end up supporting everything, while we're also supporting more keyboard stuff in fort mode as well that we need to catch up on.
yeah.
It would be very interesting to see Dwarf Fortress with like some modern, like, what are they called, rotary menus or something, like you right click and some like
radial menus.
Yeah, radial menus or some weird stuff that looks like some modern like phone app or whatever. That would be interesting.
We've been tempted. I mean, there's also this kind of push toward trying to make everything a one-button roguelike. Like you can just go up to something and press enter, and then you get a context-sensitive menu and stuff like that. I just don't know if that would be like 50 pages long or whatever. It might not work. I don't know.
Ew, context sensitive.
Yeah, we're gonna be playing around trying to figure stuff out.
As long as you don't do radial menus within radial menus, that never works. Next question comes in from Sewer Goblin, and this kind of relates back to frame rate. I think at one point we actually talked about something similar to this in a previous one of these, which was, do you plan to add site population cap to make adventure mode in big cities more playable? From Sewer Goblin.
I would prefer to make them playable without doing that, and that's kind of the question, right? Is like, if we cannot overcome the FPS problems from walking around in a capital, does that mean that a capital should have 10 times as few people? I mean, probably. I just wanted to get up to 10,000. They're not all loaded at the same time, right? It's capital's big. Goblins are a little different. But the adventure, I'd like the human towns to stay at 10,000 if I can swing it.
I see.
If the goblins work differently, like they have to be spread out more, and not just all in this giant tower with zillions of goblins, then we'll have to do something like that. But
gotcha.
yeah, I'd like to keep the numbers up if I can.
Sure, yeah. Dvajevsky, I'm not saying that right. Dvajevsky says, why do different coins in adventure mode have no trade value, unlike normal items? Why not at least equate it to an item worth 1? It's still made of valuable metals.
Don't they have their currency value in adventure mode locally?
Oh, maybe that's the problem. Wonder if they're going outside of that local region with coins.
Yeah, so they don't have money changing, I guess, is the actual problem here.
Yeah, that would be my assumption.
That's probably it. I mean, that's probably what's going on.
Also,
I agree that they should be worth. I agree that they should be worth the metal that they're printed on or whatever, but they should be worth more. I mean, currency is usually worth more than the material it's made out of.
Right. I'm gonna bounce something off of chat here and just say I use coins. I like to flaunt my wealth. Thank you very much. Put it behind glass windows and look at them. They're all pretty.
Well, it's also just dangerous for any Titan or Bronze Colossus that might be around.
Yeah, dwarves pick them up and throw them.
Yep,
Pretty
pitching.
good bullets.
Coin pitching.
Miscellaneous object is a very
All right.
useful
Dwarves
skill.
now have underwear and firearms.
Tekkud, do you want to take this one
Yeah.
from Cooler?
Sure, yeah. Cooler SK asks, I know the return of adventure mode is ways into the future, but I do enjoy exploring and experiencing the game worlds from somewhat grounded perspective of a person inhabiting it. Having played as various creatures, my question is the following. Will there be an ability to request clothing or armor from one of the crafter shops in towns and cities sized for your adventurer? I personally like the concept of differently sized clothing for different creatures.
I mean, it's a reasonable thing for them to ask for, especially because those animal people populations can move into towns, and presumably, like, if they are deciding to become civilized, and they do because they start wearing clothes and stuff, right? It's like that stuff is just generated for them, but then you can't like tap into that market. Like if 50 leopard people already lived in the town and they're wearing leopard people sized clothing, then if you're a random leopard person adventurer and you go to the town, you expect to have a pipeline there for that because they just generated that stuff. Now, if you were an elephant person adventurer going to the leopard person town, then yeah, I mean that it would make more sense for it to be like this custom tailor job. If there's already leopard people in the town, they're like, this is something we're kind of used to thinking about at least. If you've got the local currency or whatever properly, or offer up your services as a you could like rescue cats from trees as an elephant person or whatever. Then yeah, I think it's a reasonable request. It's something that we picked up a little bit in Fortress mode, even though it's still kind of annoying, to make the large clothing properly.
The fashion release.
Yes.
The fashion art.
We do need more types of shirts and stuff. Obviously, we need fashion stuff.
Split
The only
shirts
fashion
and
is the divine. The divine people have all these fashion adjectives.
scarves.
Like long flowing metal, whatever. They have they'll have like what kind of things? They have like tall hats and stuff, right? They have adjectives.
So we've kind of gotten through our adventure mode questions. So I just have this section called the best of the rest, which is just kind of a bunch of miscellaneous ones. The first one I have here is from Duke, and they say, how many lines of code have you written for Dwarf Fortress? Also, huge thanks for all of the effort.
I mean, I need to fire it up to check. Does anybody remember how many I had before?
I think in the Stack Overflow article, it was like 700 something thousand, if I'm not
Yeah, I don't
mistaken.
think
10.
Did you say more
At
than
least 10. I said at least 10.
Oh yeah. No, but if Stack Overflow said 700,000, then I'd say it's not too much different from that now. I mean, there's more, but I've also like commented out all of the old menus, so it's actually dropped a lot too. Depending on how you count comments. Because if you're just searching for like semicolons in your code, it'll count all the comments you commented out. If you're doing some like code metrics thing from inside MSVC, I haven't tried that yet. I have bad luck with those. Sometimes they just crash for me or whatever. But yeah, I think that's fair. 700. I know it's more than 500,000 or whatever, and it has been for a while.
Tekkud, do you want to take this anonymous
Sure.
one?
An anonymous one, yep. What do you think about restricting announcements and possibly screen updates similar to adventure mode to what your dwarves and maybe trained animals can see? Getting a forgotten beast or siege announcement only when they're spotted and possibly through doors would be fun. Capital fun, and would make having some military dwarves guarding the gates and caverns very useful. And I can imagine right now in my head the purple message that says, Urist has found a forgotten beast.
Yeah, I think it didn't feel practical before when we started because we weren't throwing line of sight, out everywhere.
Also, to be fair, there's ambushes.
Yeah,
We look just like that.
Yeah, no, we did kind of gamify the solution by just making ambushers, right? But in terms of like the actual, like we have this kind of weird line of sight exploration when you go near the hidden area in the cavern, it'll expand out according to how far it just goes. Like it doesn't go by line of sight; it goes by flood fill 60 or something like that. And line of sight, like cavern exploration, would be basically impossible to run with that many dwarves in 3D environment on tiles. But doing line of sight to creatures, I mean, it would work because we currently do it for all of the different reasons we do it now. It came in with one of those adventure mode releases. I think it was probably the stealth one, and we started having to do line of sight in dwarf mode as well to get the code to overlap, like the combat code. So I mean, it's more practical now. I don't know if I actually like it or not. It's fun to stumble upon things and stuff, but it might be too fiddly having to like watch them flow in and out of your view or whatever, right? If they're kind of like flickering, it feels like it would be very flickery compared to adventure mode where everything's more slow paced.
Yeah.
But there's probably an in between solution of spotting things for the first time instead of just showing you like way down deep in the cavern or whatever.
I have a bonus question about sight, since you mentioned line of sight and stuff. A little technical, I guess. So in my current fort, I have a church, which is made of chert. It's the church. It's a high ceiling church. There's 2 Z levels I dug out for this. And there's a balcony. And there's statues up on that balcony. Are my dwarves on the main floor of that church getting happy thoughts from these statues on the balcony? Can they see up the Z levels and get thoughts from furniture and stuff?
I think because they're not alive, it's too expensive for them to do that. But what I don't remember is if there's like a little 1x1x1 like little cube that they look at. My guess would be no, but it's also the kind of thing that it would not be expensive to implement at close distance, and I don't think I did. If you're not noticing those thoughts, then it's pretty clear that they're not. And it would, it would be my guess would be no, but also that it could be fixed without destroying the game. Unlike seeing them from like 10 tiles away and 5 tiles up or whatever, that's just never going to happen.
Yeah, well, that's all right. It's for the lore anyway. You know, it's for me, the high ceiling church. It's not for the dwarves.
You could add a little like stairway. I mean, if there's a ramp up to the balcony and an additional meeting area, then they'll visit both of them, I think, right?
Something that I noticed actually in regards to elven ambushes is if you're very, very watchful, you can actually see your doors opening and closing with nothing walking through them at a distance. So, you know, if you just have a lot of doors, you can have like sonar, I guess, see them coming.
Yeah, it reminds me of like the invisible people walking through the snow and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of creepy. I've got this question here from Techie, and they say, what's the most real-life research you've had to do for making systems in the game? Would you say you became an expert in anything for the game's sake?
Absolutely not. I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
that master of none problem.
Yeah. No, I mean, becoming an expert. I mean, yeah. I mean, as people have gone through like university stuff, and I mean, the bar is pretty damn high.
We have bought like the beginner level books on like weather and gemstones and stuff like that. So we just cover all these things really shallow, like.
Yeah. No, definitely not. Now, as far as like what is the most in depth we've ever gone into something, what would that be? Does anything strike you as particularly deep at all? I mean, it's all just no, it's all just a little bit there.
Wide.
Yeah, I don't feel like anything is super complicated, but because like the weather is interesting, right? The cloud formation and stuff is more complicated than it should be.
Oh, wait. People have passed their geology tests in high school, or was it college?
Yeah, no, it was a college 101.
College 101. So
yeah,
there we go.
Yeah,
geology.
No, that the environments that the rocks live in and stuff is. I mean, we did look that up. But it's one of those things where you're just kind of passing through a rock guide or whatever. And learning basically what metamorphic and igneous, the 2 different igneous types and the sedimentary rocks mean and stuff. But that's not like there's no like batholiths or whatever. I mean, we've been suggested, of course. People are like, why don't you add batholiths to the game? And we're like, well, it would be cool, wouldn't it? And then we're like, but we need to do a map rewrite before we can do any cool geology. And then the map rewrite just gets another thing that it's like, well, the map rewrite is an important part of Dwarf Fortress.
I almost added some metals to the game. I almost added chrome and cobalt to make some alloys. Well, chrome would have been used as a decorative thing, cobalt to alloy with steel. And I was looking at some of the raws and I was like, material science. I wasn't expecting a 101 on this because apparently all of the metals are like, oh, we got all sorts of details about this metal and its physical properties. Of course, it's, less than an engineer might study in school, but it's there, the basics are certainly there.
Yeah, it's there. We make little mistakes and stuff, but the gist is pretty good there. I remember people were complaining about our steel making process. They're like, they're both puddling and doing this. It doesn't make any sense. I'm like, well, it needed to be a gamey thing, so there's an extra step. You got the pig iron.
You're also not using blast furnaces, right? Don't you need? Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's no like Bessemer ass dwarves or anything. It's all very old. We need bog iron too. We need to add bog iron. You got bog iron and pig iron. You get all the iron in there. Make it pretty good. Yeah. Gotta make the game better. Iron's not good enough yet. But then we need to make bronze matter more too, because right now you just kind of you can just make iron stuff, and I think it's mostly better than the bronze stuff, and like that just involves material scarcity, and we just don't have. And yeah, it's just not. We're just not there yet,
Yeah, the map rewrite is coming.
This next one is kind of a bit of a thought experiment, and it comes in from Boo, and they say, since Dwarf Fortress started development, our world has changed a lot, with fields of science moving ever onward. I wonder if there are examples of things being in-game that were believed to be true at the time that are no longer are because of new understandings. If so, did you change these or plan on changing them in the future? For example, they like to think of gender studies.
I mean, I don't know where we were. I mean, because some people understood that stuff, right? I mean, right before. Like back in the year 2000, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's been a while that people understood a lot of that stuff, but it's just not, I guess mainstreamed or something. I don't know what the thing is there. Certainly for me, I don't remember when I started learning more about that. Certainly when I started the game, I didn't. You can tell by the code that it's just not respected, right? I mean, gender is not even the correct word to be using in our casts. Right, it should just be sex in there, which I probably shied away from because of just the kind of spirit and stuff that's hanging over all game developers that started in the 80s with all this panic and shit that we had to deal with or whatever. So it's just not very up to date for sure. That's probably one of the best examples. Because I mean, it's like with other things, I'm sure there's other stuff in the game that's out of date, and I do appreciate if people tell me. I wouldn't have noticed probably if something is wrong, especially just like with some technical thing or something. I just don't know. Yeah, so that's certainly an example.
Like some dinosaurs in Dwarf Fortress have feathers.
And dinosaurs are a good example too, and I think I dodged that just because I use such generic words, but like when I was a little kid, a brontosaurus was a thing. Mm-hmm. Do you all even know what a brontosaurus is?
I know what a brontosaurus is.
Yeah, because is the brontosaurus not real anymore? Is it all just like a apatosaurus and shit or whatever?
I thought that it was like bones that were misplaced or something.
Yeah, so yeah, just that kind of thing. I don't know if they've gotten rid of some of our species of animals. Our stuff is just not quite specific enough, despite having hundreds of them. It's not quite specific enough that I think a genus thing would change and cause one of the animals to disappear. But it's happened before. Like they change animals quite a bit when they do genetic studies and stuff. They just discover that the groupings are wrong. It's just not, our game's just not quite granular enough to where that would be on the radar, I think.
For sure.
Someone in chat said they'd like to see interspecies dating, like dwarf and elves or human. Without getting into the details, what about, here's an interesting question. What about what about half-breed races, basically? Even if they were like infertile to avoid having a million races.
I was gonna say that might be a problem.
What about like a half elf? Can you could that work?
Well, Zach, as the author of Half Dwarf,
the story. Yeah. So the intention is there, but we don't know.
Yeah, it's tricky.
How it's possible. I mean, anything's possible, I guess, but
because that's something. Yeah.
Oh, so I'm just saying it's not much different from the centaur problem or the chimera problem, where and the griffin problem and the all of these classic creatures that you want to build out of their constituent pieces rather than just saying just rather than fudging it in the raws, you want it to be correct, and so you want to do cut and paste stuff, right? And it's just not supported right now. This is kind of it's like the half creature thing is a similar problem that has different difficulties, where with it understanding how to average things, right? Like doing and how to correspond things, like it wouldn't even know in the beginning that a dwarf's right upper arm is the same as an elf's right upper arm in some sense, right? And that they should kind of correspond to each other in whatever child is produced, and that doing things like averaging attributes and stuff like that, if that's indeed how it worked, that's all easy. A lot of it is straightforward. It's just the physical part that is just messy. And you can start to add more category variables to draw these kind of distinctions and produce a body that makes sense. We already have these kind of I don't remember if we use them at all. Maybe on zombies or something. I don't remember. No, maybe not. Maybe we just don't use them, but they already exist. These unique body pointers. It can create a new body that is not tied to a raw file and still work. That stuff exists. Is kind of when we had these multiple souls ideas too. The souls are all in this dynamic array, even though no creature in the game has more than one right now. It's just there's certain weird future proofing that we then just moved completely away from whatever we were future proofing for years and years and years. So I think in the end there's going to be a solution to this problem that may even allow you to do whatever mixtures you want within reason. I don't know if it's going to be able to do the snake man dwarf, the snorf or whatever.
Oh yeah,
get
into all that.
Oh god, I didn't even consider that.
Right? How does it do the legs? But doing the elephorf or whatever, the elephant man dwarf, then it's does it understand the nose and the trunk are related? But the legs and stuff are the same.
But then we can get the viral marketing of fox girls. Which
no. I mean it's an important demographic,
Very
we respect all of our players. And the question that was asked.
Tekkud, do you want to ask this next one?
Sure, yeah. Felipe from Brazil. That's a terrible act. That's the wrong accent. Anyway, it was said already in some Q&A that the Mythos update will include big changes to the structure of the world, like clouds replacing the ocean, or something like that as far as I remember. Can you explain a little more about this? What are the possibilities? How will it work? And also, Brazil was in all caps with exclamation points. I realize now the viewers can't see that, and I was just yelling words.
It is all caps with multiple exclamation points.
Yeah, no, you gotta pass along what they're given to you. It's understandable, the enthusiasm.
Yeah, so this is the map rewrite that we've been alluding to, and it was also we would talk about the big wait when people in classic mode are waiting for us to do this map rewrite that's going to change everything. And it ends up that it's it can be done in increments more than no.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so. I hope so. But yeah, it's well. Take the question. I mean, the increments are. I mean, there's the increments. Do you want a sea of milk? What do we need for a sea of milk? We need to redefine how oceans work, and we also need to allow non-water, non-magma fluids, right? So those are two things that are not related to the rest of the map rewrite, mostly. And are they in the first pass? Probably not. If they're not in the first pass, then they are an incremental part of the map rewrite. I guess the question, because Zach and I have been talking about this for the last week or two. Like we said, we're going over all the old notes. And it does look like the map rewrite will be. There's things about it that are easier than I thought. And yeah. Hopefully it can be pulled together.
Yeah, nothing's 100% worked through at this point, but it's looking better than it was.
If all of the different kinds of liquids and fluids that I've seen in Dwarf Fortress were made able to become a liquid like water and magma, I'm not. It would be chaos. There would be so many options. Like your sea could be made out of so much stuff.
Yeah, well, it's
terrible things.
Y'all have seen Noida, right, or whatever, and like that's like we had like many people, we had the idea to have these fluids flowing around and stuff, but it's fun to see it in action there, right? And for us, it's like the problems still remain about mixing, right? Like if you pour the honey and the or not pour, if you open your honey floodgate and your milk floodgate and your water floodgate and your oil floodgate and your blood floodgate, and you just drop them into a thing, like what should happen? Talking about research and expertise, whatever. It's like, that's kind of a problem for like a cook and a fluid dynamics person.
Wasn't there? There's also just the fact there's not enough bits to represent everything. Right?
Yeah, I mean it's a tricky problem because the bits have to kind of come. Like the map has to be more local about its bits and its understanding of what's allowed, and kind of dynamically increase what's allowed without going overboard. And that's kind of what the map rewrite is, just this vein of thing. Like how can we tweak the way the map currently works without rewriting everything? So there's just added structures or things that are broken apart just slightly, but I don't have to go and change all 10,000 places in the code where it's querying, hey, this is my map tile.
So this next question was kind of ruined by today's stream on Kit Fox's channel that I took part in. So I know the answer to this, but I'm going to elaborate a little bit on it. This comes from some rando named Clinodev, and they ask, have you decided on a version number for the first premium release? And I'm going to add on to this a little bit and say, how did you decide on the number of the premium release?
It's a nice round number, isn't it? If you saw it on the stream.
Mm-hmm.
But the way you decide is the same way you always decide. You go into the old version notes file, you increment the stuff that you've accomplished, and it turns out that the old version notes file gave us like 2 points for finishing interface tutorials. The graphic stuff is like, yes, that was 2% of our major plan from 10 years ago or whatever. For as long as it makes sense, we're going to stick with that system just because it's funny. Just this old planning system we had that has a bunch of stuff that's relevant, like the myth and magic stuff is all in there, and the kingdom type mode is all in there. And it turns out the graphics and tutorials and interface was all in there, worth 2 points. And so that got us from 47 to 49. And then just other little changes we've been making, like all this stuff added up, and we got to 50.
Convenient.
So that's a nice round number. I like it. I like 50. We're halfway done. Been working on this thing for 20 years, and we got maybe 20 left, and maybe more. I'm hoping for more than 20 years. I'm 44.
I'm trying to do the math.
Yeah. So if we're talking about getting into our mid to late 60s, with the world cooperating, of course, the world's going to have to pull a little bit of weight there to get us through. But yeah, then maybe we'll be done, done game.
I mean, my dad's in his 60s, and he just went on a 2-night backpacking trip with me up a 30-kilometer mountain. So, that's got to be at least as difficult as developing Dwarf Fort.
Yeah, 30 kilometers.
After that, Dwarf Fortress 2.
Excellent. Can't wait. Tekkud, do you want to take this next one?
Yeah. Olgra asks, as someone who failed to get into the classic version due to its low accessibility, I can't wait to try the Steam version. Still, how much do you feel Dwarf Fortress's charm and identity is tied to its puzzling controls and textures? And did you at any time during development of the Steam version abandon certain quality of life, / modernization ideas because they strayed too far away from the game's core identity?
I don't think we probably would have gotten into that museum if it had started out the way it is now. I think, and we really worked on it. We were like, this is ASCII. It's going to use the same number of colors as it did back in the early 90s or the 80s or whatever. And so we did make an art project out of it. And yeah, moving forward into the way it is now, it's not as like, yeah, it loses a little bit of something, but it adds a whole lot. So, I mean, more people are able to play it. So,
yeah, and we'll see if the charm hold. I mean, like, Classic's not done yet, so we haven't really got to just sit down and play the new Classic, because it's still there, right? And whether that feels like it has it doesn't have the same weird rough edges in the menu choices and the IJKL thing or HUJK or whatever it is on Embark menu and stuff. Like, even in Classic, some of that stuff has been abandoned, but I can't see that as being like good, like the UJK. It's like it wasn't good at the time, and I knew it wasn't good at the time too, right? It was obviously bad, deeply ridiculous. And I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be fine. Yeah, I think it'll maintain.
I'd say that at least what I can kind of deduce from my experience just talking with people in the community and whatever is that Dwarf Fortress's original identity, so to speak, of being this game that's sort of cryptic and difficult to sort of unlock for yourself has been usurped by an identity as a game that's extremely complex and has a lot of possibilities. And I'd say that is probably, at least this is just my opinion, what I see people talk about. I would guess that's the new reason why Dwarf Fortress is famous. It's not necessarily because it's cryptic anymore. So maybe, I mean, again, I'm just talking from experience with people. But yeah, as long as Dwarf Fortress remains the premier simulator for goblin thongs, I don't know if it matters that it looks like it used to look.
Well, I think now you can just show somebody the sprite sheet count and they would go back to thinking that it's super complicated again.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, jeez, it is pretty high. Yeah.
This next question comes in from Matthew, and they say, you'll be very deserving of a vacation by the time the game comes out on Steam. What's your dream vacation destination?
I think, let's see. Well, I owe my buddy in New York a visit because he's come out to see me get married twice in Seattle. So I think I need to go back there first.
What do I want to do with my dumbass life? I don't know.
Fly to Hawaii for a bit.
Walk up to the mountaintop and meditate on it for a while.
That's right. That's volcano. Yeah, those volcanoes are fun.
No iron, though. Real bummer. No iron.
Final question I have written from the community. Oh, it's not really a question. It's more of a request, actually. This comes in from Alex, and they want us to wish them a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Alex.
Happy birthday.
And there was about, 50 comments about this that I deleted all, so I'm just going to kind of leave this at the end, which is, you have anything that you can talk about merch, collector's editions, hard copy versions, stuff that people can
You saw that tweet. I know you all saw that tweet.
Uh-huh.
There were two eyes looking to the left or looking to the right, right? Is that what that was? Yeah, that's what I got for you. I mean, I'm not the publisher,
Keep an eye out.
Yeah, them eyes they weren't looking at nothing. That's my understanding.
I know myself and a lot of other people have been pushing for physical releases of the soundtrack on any format, record preferred, but I know that it will be.
That'd be like a lithograph or something, right? Like some kind of stone record.
Just give me like a Laserdisc release of the soundtrack. I would hang that on my wall. But jokes aside, though, I know that the soundtrack will be releasing for sale alongside of the game as well, so people can pick it up there. Man, I don't know where to go from this. I guess wishlist the game. I'm out of questions at this point. So
what if you go to body_default in the objects folder and do a Control F for the word thumb?
I've been informed that there are no like thumbs in Dwarfort.
Body, 5 fingers. BP, finger 1. Thumb, STP.
Okay.
Con type, grasp, digit, small, category finger.
We have thumbs.
We have
Fingers are thumbs, or thumbs are fingers, confirmed right here.
We have a thumb and a first finger up to a fourth finger. There's no fifth finger.
You just decisively resolved a massive ongoing debate.
As to
Now,
whether or
what
not
I
there was
want to
fingers.
say though, like the 4 fingers, it's thumb, first finger, second finger, third finger. If something has 3 fingers, it's thumb, first finger, second finger. If something has 2 fingers, it just has a first finger and a second finger. It does not have a thumb.
Okay.
Not like a thumb and finger, so it's not like a little circle it's making. It's more symmetric or something.
My
It's
nightmares have been
undergoing-
quelled.
Carcinization
It
and
is.
becoming the ultimate life form.
That's right, first pincer top and first pincer bottom or something.
Well, as always at this point, what I'm going to say is thank you, Zach and Tarn, for coming on the channel once again. Tekkud, thanks a ton for co-hosting. If anybody hasn't yet, you can follow Tekkud on Twitch via the link that keeps popping up at the top of the chat. And I guess, Zach and Tarn, do you have any closing thoughts or things you guys would like to say? Aside
Thanks
from
for doing
the game.
doing what you do and spreading the word about Dwarf Fortress. I enjoy watching your channel once in a while.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, I got nothing to say.
Echoes. Okay. Sweet. Well, everybody go wishlist the game if you haven't yet. Go follow it on Steam. Pump that wishlist number up. Let's see if we can get to number 15. I think we're currently the 16th most wishlisted game on Steam.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what Atomic Heart is, but that's the next one.
Yeah, that's a game that's been around for a very, 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 very long time in development hell with really cool boss fight footage and not much else.
Yeah, but they must be doing quite well. We weren't actually at 1 million wish lists. I remember that came up on one of your streams or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're I mean, Tanya said 700, right? In that other interview. We're above that now, but we're not close to 1 million.
It's
So
interesting.
I'm not sure what's
because
going on. I have no idea if that list is actually in order or how it works. I mean, I don't want to speculate too much about it, but
there's
it's
a
interesting.
game that was below it. That was, I think, like the 18th that claimed in a PR email that they were over 1 million wish lists.
Yeah.
that-
And for all I know, they might be. I mean, I really don't know how that list is constructed because it might take like release dates into consideration, all kinds of other
Yeah,
stuff.
it is confusing because we were up there for a while above those other games, and then our release date came out and we stayed low. So yeah, we don't know what.
We have no idea how it works.
Yeah. Well, is what it is. Regardless.
Yeah, no, we're not. We're happy with our numbers. So
Yeah, 16th in the list is pretty damn good. So.
16th most wishlisted game on Steam. Considering that game that did send out that PR email had like 80,000 concurrent players overnight. So, like that's a pretty good sign,
That's
I would say,
pretty good.
regardless.
that's pretty good. Oh, man.
So thank you very much for joining me on this here channel. And chat room, thanks for hanging out and submitting questions. Tekkud, thanks again for co-hosting. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I'm going to take us offline now. And I will be back in about 10 minutes to chit-chat with you guys, chat. And till then, till next time, bye.
Oh.
And congratulations, you've made it to the end. I just wanted to say a big thank you to everybody who watched this video. Of course, if you would like to see my streams live on Twitch, you can find me at twitch.tv/BLINDIRL. If you haven't yet purchased the game or wishlist the game at the Steam link or itch.io link down in the description of this video. And of course, if you haven't, please go give Tekkud a follow. His link is in the description as well. He can be found on YouTube and Twitch under Tekkud. Thank you very much to Zach and Tarn for joining me and watching these videos, and shoutouts to everybody on Patreon and my YouTube members for keeping these videos bankrolled. There will be another one in about 3 to 4 months, depending on when a good time arises, and hopefully after the 2 lovely gentlemen that we spoke with in this video are overnight millionaires. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.